is quite simply the largest, most expensive, most powerful, and arguably the most controversial dam in all of history. Today, we take you to China, to the Three Gorges Dam. It's 10 years now since the massive project was completed. Imagine this 185 metres high. That's the equivalent of a building of more than 60 floors, and it is 2 kilometres long, the reservoir behind it covering 1,000 square kilometres. The idea for it is steeped in history. The father of the Chinese Revolution, Sun Yat-sen, dreamt of it right back in 1919. Work, though, did not start until 1994, after a series of fierce debates. It's certain that the dam has made transport far easier. Flooding of the Yangtze River is easier to regulate, and it produces massive amounts of electricity. But the dam was incredibly expensive, 23 billion euros, and it brought, critics say, catastrophic human consequences. Nearly 1.5 million people displaced to make way for the monster.
真的深层很难很难，你走也走不了。后面我们从搬了，从这个大移民过后，也不给我们划土地那事情，又还要给上缴，直到现在。
To add to the distress, there are also huge environmental concerns. Even as it was being built, experts were already also warning of the ecological impact of the dam, the destruction of the ecosystem, the wiping out of entire animal species from the region, and the acceleration of natural disasters. Sad to say, they've been proved right. As you'll see, witnesses are rare, and to investigate what has happened, incredibly difficult. Antoine Verdy, Angélique Forget and Charlie Wang revisit the Three Gorges Dam for France 24.
These newlyweds want to celebrate their union in a spectacular fashion. They've chosen a mass wedding. These 28 couples are getting married at the same time in a prime location, at the foot of the Three Gorges Dam that was inaugurated 10 years ago, a potent symbol that's brought them from all over China.
我衷心的祝愿各位新人，在相伴相随的岁月里，爱情像三峡大坝一样坚固。
The hydraulic dam is also strong on patriotic pride. The Chinese structure doesn't hold back on superlatives. It's the biggest, the most powerful, and most expensive dam in the world. This couple want their love story to be forever linked to this example of Chinese greatness.
I'm very excited.
I'm very excited. This wedding ceremony is very meaningful, and it's different from usual weddings. Generally, only friends and family are invited to take part. But here it's like we're getting married in front of the entire Chinese people.
We're here in front of this dam and in front of this great river to promise our eternal love to each other.
This concrete giant has gone down in history as China's biggest building project of the 20th century. 10 years on, it has fulfilled its aim to control the flow of the Yangtze River and increase electricity production. In an unprecedented feat, it produces as much hydroelectric energy per year as would 15 nuclear reactors. Thanks to the dam, the area's inhabitants have seen their lives transformed. Power cuts are now a thing of the past. For the country's leadership, the dam is a monument to China's prowess. On an inspection tour of the Three Gorges Valley 2 years ago, Chinese President Xi Jinping celebrated the project's success with the site's workers.
The Three Gorges Dam is a symbol. We could only rely on ourselves to see this project through. I'm very happy to be here and to be able to witness it. Just like everyone here, I've gained in confidence.
But such a gigantic structure also has its share of controversy. Entire valleys were flooded during construction. In total, 1.4 million people had to leave their lands and property to make way for the edifice. 400 kilometers from the dam in an upriver valley, this retired farmer was one of the first people to be displaced. He chose to remain anonymous. Even 30 years after the project began, the dam remains a painful topic.
My house was right there next to the bamboo. My workshop was over there. I would shell ears of wheat and make flour here.
He lived here with his wife and father, until the family home was threatened by the rising water level.
The water level reached 1.75 meters. It was very close. The house ended up being right next to the water. They were worried that the river would flood the house, so they told me to move.
Over 20 years after his home was commandeered, today is the first time he's returned to the site. His sorrow is intact.
This place makes me very sad. It was a good idea to build the dam, but it would have been better to find housing for those who've been expropriated. Now I have nowhere to live. I live in poverty. My life has no meaning.
After his expulsion, the authorities offered to relocate him in a neighboring province, over 800 kilometers from home. But without any lodgings or land to continue farming, he refused to leave. He's now 64 years old, unemployed and penniless. He's settled in this city next to the river, where he rents a small room in an underground apartment that he shares with a family.
Here's the entrance of the apartment. This is the kitchen, and this is my room.
His living conditions are dire and unsanitary, but it's all he can afford. As compensation for being expropriated, Chinese authorities gave him 3,000 euros and a monthly pension of just 6 euros.
This is the document proving that I'm a Three Gorges Dam migrant. It's signed by an official, and this is the proof of my compensation. The authorities destroyed my house and then they sold the bricks. But they didn't care at all what would happen to me after that. I used to live in the countryside. I had fields. I could work the land. I had enough to live on. Today I no longer have fields. I have nothing. No money.
He's not the only one in his village to lament the expropriation of his property. Others, too, had to abandon their lands. 20 years on, their anger is still palpable.
Hi, everyone.
Take a chair, sit down.
These villagers have been calling for additional compensation, and today they're holding a meeting to see whether their claims have been addressed. They've accepted to be filmed because the authorities are already aware of their grievances. They feel like they have nothing left to lose.
We're still waiting for a payment of 150 euros. We moved 20 years ago, and we've only received 2,500 euros. Is that enough to survive on for 20 years?
They too were once farmers, ordered to leave their land and start a whole new life, far away from home. A situation they still find intolerable.
We often get together to discuss the difficulties of expropriation. We filed a complaint with local authorities, but they don't listen. We don't know who to turn to for help. We are in favor of the Three Gorges Dam. It's our duty to support the project, but we should be given more help.
None of these farmers will say a word against the dam itself. In spite of the methods used to make it happen, all of them voice support for this grand national scheme. Yet the Three Gorges Dam hasn't just displaced over 1 million people. It's also led to huge changes for the Yangtze River's biodiversity. Upriver lies Chongqing and its 34 million inhabitants. Once isolated, the city has now become a major economic hub, all thanks to the dam and the development of river transport. But at what cost? The world's third biggest river is now all but devoid of fish. Fishermen's nets are coming up empty, and their boats barely leave the dock.
This is the boat that we'd use for short trips. I would sit here and off we'd go.
Chun Yo-yi used to be a fisherman. For 25 years, he sailed on the Yangtze River every day. But for a year now, he's been barred from taking to the waters.
In November of last year, officials gave us the order to stop fishing and to destroy our boats. They told us this ban would last for 10 years because there were no fish left in the river. That's why we can't fish. When they return, we'll be able to fish again, but that won't happen for a decade.
Officially, overfishing is to blame for the current situation, making it the fishermen's responsibility. But Chun Yo-yi and his colleague reject this version of events. They believe there's another explanation.
It's because of the dam. Because it cuts the river in two, the fish downriver can't swim back upstream. They reproduce in the tributaries of the river, in addition to the main canal. So this has consequences on the waters further up. Before the dam, we could fish up to 40 or 45 kilos a day. After the dam, it was down to 5 or 10 kilos a day. Can you imagine such a huge difference?
Nowadays in Chongqing, angling is the only kind of fishing still authorized along the Yangtze River. But these amateur fishermen have reached the same conclusion. There's simply nothing to catch.
I haven't caught a single fish. I'm just here to kill time.
Look here, I'll show you what I caught. Nothing. The bucket's empty.
Since the construction of the dam, many scientists have looked into the project and have been faced with some tough questions, such as, is such a huge structure actually necessary? What is the dam's environmental impact? And is it perhaps doing more bad than good? Only one Chinese scientist has agreed to answer our questions, but his apartment is monitored by the authorities, so we talked to him online.
When someone speaks about the dam publicly, it's only to talk about its positive aspects. Questioning its existence publicly is forbidden. As a geologist and as an expert on this dam in particular, he's not only worried about the decreasing number of fish, he also contends that the Yangtze River's water is more polluted than before. After the dam was built, the water flowed more slowly, so it didn't renew as fast. Before, when wastewater flowed into the river, its quick flow meant the water could renew itself and dissolve the waste. Today, the river flow is slower, and the quality of the water isn't as good as it used to be. Beyond the environmental impact, some are worried about the geological consequences. Record-breaking rainfall over the summer flooded central China and filled up the Three Gorges Reservoir to a level unseen since it entered into service. As a result, some believe the dam is nearing its bursting point. Last year, satellite pictures were shared online before being censored. They showed what looked like a distortion in the structure. Authorities insist there is no risk of the dam bursting. But 9,000 kilometers away in the German city of Dortmund, a Chinese geologist is voicing some serious concerns. Wang Weiluo is a staunch critic of the dam and has written extensively about the issue and is banned from publishing back home. He rejects the Chinese government's assurances.
The Chinese government is hiding something. At first it said, there is no distortion, there is no movement. It's nonsense. Everything is in order. And now it's saying, yes, there are movements, there is some distortion, but it hasn't reached its limits. The problem is that the government doesn't say where those limits are.
If the structure were to break, the huge quantity of water held by the dam would submerge part of the city of Wuhan, some 400 kilometers downstream. Despite its opponents, China's appetite for hydroelectric energy hasn't been curbed. In fact, the country boasts the largest number of dams in the world, 98,000 and counting. Structures that continue to alter biodiversity and displace people across the country.
Antoine Veddy, Angélique Forget and Charlie Wang revisiting the Three Gorges Dam for France 24. Well, that's all from this week's edition. Don't forget, of course, you can catch it and all the previous editions as well on our website. That's at france24.com. More news coming up in just a moment. Thanks for watching.